You're in for a real treat today. This is gonna be so much fun.
You are here to protect your mothers, your fathers, your children.
Fire will.
I missed you.
That game is on, guys.
Hey everybody, this is Darren Van Dam, and you are watching Flick Connection, the show that helps you get more out of movies. And I'm taking a break from telling you about the best movies on Netflix today to try to figure out what is the actual worst movie on Netflix. So when trying to figure out what is the worst movie on Netflix, unfortunately you have to watch a lot of really awful movies on Netflix, and a natural place to start is gonna be with Nicolas Cage movies. Now, don't get me wrong, I am a fan of Nicolas Cage. If you can't tell by this shirt, I like the man's style.
Hey, my snakeskin jacket! Did I ever tell you that this here jacket represents a symbol of my individuality and my belief in personal freedom?
But he does make some really terrible movies. One of the worst currently on Netflix has gotta be Between Worlds. In this movie, the love of his life dies and then comes back and possesses the seemingly underage daughter of his new girlfriend. I say underage, she's probably in her early 20s. Awful stuff. I mean, the script for this is clearly for like a softcore porn that they then somehow turned into a movie. I'm not really sure how it got made, but as awful as it is, there are some interesting moments in it. In no way do I recommend this movie, but it's not gonna quite qualify for the worst.
Mogadishu, Somalia, Bosnia.
Ask your healthcare provider for 2-layer Ambien CR.
So then you might think, oh, well, Bruce Willis makes really awful movies now, and I know not everybody has caught on to that now, but he does. That's almost exclusively what the guy does. Airstrike is a good example of just a completely terrible movie that they basically only made because they could get Bruce Willis and Adrian Brody to appear in it in China. They just put Bruce's face up, the word airstrike, and most people are maybe not gonna turn it off. Then you think, oh, well, obviously a Steven Seagal movie? No? Well, the only one they got on Netflix right now, at least here in the US, is Under Siege, and that's among maybe his top 3 movies. So again, I'm coming up empty-handed. What Lies Below is a fairly recently released movie. Not only is this movie terrible, but I'm pretty sure they broke some laws while making this movie. It's a weird movie about this crazy woman played by the girl from American Beauty who gets in a relationship with some younger hunk that clearly wants to have sex with her daughter. I guess that's what passes for entertainment. However, he ends up being some sort of weird underwater dwelling sea creature, and yeah, they never really go for it. You never really see him turn into anything. It's a pretty half-ass attempt, and half-ass is a pretty generous term, but still there's something, so none of those are gonna qualify. I want one that was popular. I want a movie people watched. I want a movie so many people watched that it made it to the top 10. But this movie has to qualify as a movie. It can't be a non-movie, but it also has to have basically no story, awful acting, horrible production, and also it has to have some sort of weird quality to it. Something extreme, something over the top, something like 365 Days. Not only did this movie make it into the top 10, it was ranked #1 for over a week. And it's not only awful because the music is horribly integrated, and the song choices are gonna make you envy the deaf. And not because the entire cast, and I mean entire cast, speaks English so poorly that you're going to have to use subtitles.
We have this game in America, right? Trick or treat.
I checked in the band at our hotel on purpose.
And not because it's a 50 Shades of Grey knockoff, which was a Twilight knockoff, which was an Anne Rice knockoff. You can only knock things off so many times before you're eventually left with nothing. A husk of a movie. Believe it or not, I watched the whole thing. I've got a lot to say about it. We're gonna dive into it and pick this thing apart because I watched it so you don't have to. Okay, so the movie opens up with some gangsters having a meeting on a rooftop, and immediately I'm turned off by this movie because a couple of guys are trying to sell 12-year-old girls to this mob boss, and he wants nothing of it. I don't understand why they're having this meeting. Why are you meeting on top of this castle if you don't want what they have to Why was this meeting set up? Then we sort of get introduced to our main character. His name's Massimo. He's spying on the woman of his dreams through some binoculars. His father tells him to be careful of women like that. And then he immediately takes a bullet that passes through his father's heart. Apparently from the most silent helicopter ever built. I mean, I guess in the script, they knew that they wanted his father to get shot in the heart and then for him to take a sort of non-fatal shot in the stomach. Then why have it on this remote island on a castle? Why not just have it out somewhere where he's shot from a building? By the way, spoiler alert, this is a movie about gangsters. The only real violence in the movie, I think that might actually be the only time you see blood. And as the camera pans away, we see the giant tarp that they put on top of this castle, apparently so they didn't get fake blood all over this historical landmark. Oh, and there's no explanation, there's no chaos. He's just shot and we fade out to some really sappy music.
Let it go. It was like a million times.
We're 2 minutes in. How much worse could this get? So we immediately jump to the future and there's 2 different boardroom meetings happening at the same time. Everyone's speaking English. I can't understand a word of it.
It was possible because of my strategy. Agent Sex had nothing to do with it.
However, I will say, the movie does look good. They did a good job buying an expensive camera, and I think that's it. I don't think they hired people to hold the camera properly. We're gonna talk about that in a minute. But speaking of the movie looking good, I will say the main character is a handsome son of a bitch.
It's science.
However, he's got nothing else going on. And I know it seems like an obvious thing to say. He's never funny once in the movie. He never says anything interesting. And then after this boardroom meeting, he's on a private jet and I'm pretty sure he rapes a flight attendant. It's very, and I mean very unclear whether there was anything remotely resembling consensuality in this exchange. Not only is it graphic for a movie, again, this is not pornography. We're rating this as a movie on Netflix. It is rough stuff, and then it's extremely unclear as to what just happened. Did he know this woman? Do they do this all the time? Does she like it? Does she welcome it? Did he just force himself on somebody? It seems like we should know what's going on with the main character and why he's doing the things he's doing, and you might think, oh, well, they're gonna reveal it later. They never do. That's kind of a theme with this video, is everything that they set up never goes anywhere, and I'm gonna point out a bunch of examples of it. And then she's clearly a sex addict, but she's in a relationship with a guy who wears a tank top, cargo shorts, and a fanny pack everywhere.
It's completely unbecoming. No one's gotten a hand job in cargo shorts since Nam.
Other than being good looking with a pretty nice body, she doesn't seem to have much going on. There's zero character development in this movie. I mean, there might be a little bit, but both characters end up worse towards the end of this movie than they do at the beginning. It's so weird. Not only is all the music awful, but the lyrics almost describe what's happening on screen.
I'm going out tonight, feeling good now you're out of my life. Don't wanna talk about us.
Something that bothered me constantly as just someone who really likes movies a lot is they filmed this movie in some beautiful locations and they paid top dollar for a camera. They have a great camera that they're using with this movie. They don't appear to have many of them, but they never put it in a good spot. I mean, just look at this location and the cameras they just put it wherever there was an empty spot for someone to sit. They could have gotten so many different angles of this one, this one, this one, and it's just complete laziness behind the camera at every single moment of this movie. But just because you light a movie like John Wick and you use expensive cameras doesn't mean you're creating a good image on screen. So she ends up having a fight with cargo shorts and is so distraught that she runs through the streets at night in her bikini and cover up. I mean, literally, she just looks lost. Then she's kidnapped by the Italians. She wakes up to reveal what I guess we'll call the plot of the movie. He saw her right before he took that bullet that passed through his father's heart from that helicopter pilot we talked about, and it was the last face he saw. He sees her at the airport and then concocts this elaborate scheme to kidnap her for specifically 365 days. And there's your movie. That is what... And it's typical bonkers shit. You know, she sees this giant painting of her in this castle, which makes no sense as to why. Like, how could he have possibly, from the distance that he saw her, not only was he not gonna recognize her again, like at all, how was he able to, like, I guess this painting is like a police sketch, like the best police sketch ever done? But I'm literally gonna have to stop focusing on stupid shit like that because the movie's packed with it. I'm just gonna focus on whether or not this is even a movie. Okay, so we're 30 minutes in and I don't like anything about this movie, but we at least have a setup that looks like it could be the beginning of some kind of plot, depending on where it goes, if anywhere. Let's see where it goes. Look, I'm even overlooking the fact that he's saying he's not gonna force her or put his hands on her while he's got his hands on her throat. So all that stuff obviously sucks too, but here's just a good example of why this movie sucks, because it's riddled with shit like this. She immediately sees him kill someone. I don't know why this prisoner is not locked up better than that. She's just allowed to run around this castle. Whatever. So she goes to sleep. I don't know how she was able to go to sleep. She was drugged, kidnapped, woke up in a castle, told she's being kept prisoner for a year by a psychopath, immediately sees said psychopath kill someone, dozes off, has what appears to be a good night of sleep, wakes up, he's there, shirtless of course, I get it, whatever. But he explains that he had to because that guy was hurting kids. Problem solved. Everything's fine. They set up this conflict and then they immediately resolve it and move on, and it's not a thing anymore. Like, if you're gonna set up a conflict, oh my goodness, she got out, she saw me kill this guy. Oh, that's gonna set me back so far. That happens later in the movie where maybe she starts to fall for him and it sets them back. But to introduce a conflict and then literally immediately resolve it in the next scene and then just move on is just a waste of everyone's time. Okay, so 45 minutes into this movie, and there's like the first bit of sexual contact in a shower scene. Lots of nudity, lots of grabbing, lots of whispering, really sexually aggressive stuff.
Do you want to touch it?
And it appears that not much time has gone by. Like, she should literally still be freaking the f out. So at the 56-minute mark, there's like a BDSM thing, which I guess people go nuts for. All the 50 Shades of Grey people just like, ooh. But in this one, he ties her up and then, again, forces a woman to, I think I can say fillet without getting this video demonetized. I'm gonna be cutting it close on this one for demonetization, so be sure to like it and share it if you do like it. But forces a woman to give him a pretty rough looking gibber in front of a giant painting of himself, by the way, petting a lion. So this is somehow supposed to make her want him more. Again, baffling. But I mean, she doesn't even have a good point of view. Like, again, I don't know who this is for. And I get that, like, she's maybe a sex addict or something, but he doesn't know that. He has no information on that. He has no way of knowing that. I don't know why he thinks this is something that's gonna work for her, because it seems very counterproductive. More counterproductive than the murder, I would say. And again, that painting. Not all guys with little dicks have paintings like that, but I would dare to say only guys with little dicks had paintings like that. When I mentioned the bad music earlier, I mentioned it was horribly integrated. Here's a scene of them in a nightclub in what it sounds like. All right, enough of that before I get a copyright strike. So now we jump back to this boat, and we're about to have a major turning point in the movie, because you have to have one, but pay close attention because everything that has happened so far in the movie is about to become irrelevant, or at least inconsequential. I would assume that there are successful Polish women that completely don't know how to swim. But the odds of him finding one with a heart condition that is a sex addict that will just sort of go along with the kidnapping, The odds that he found one that also couldn't swim, the odds of that just have to be astronomical. So they get it on fire in a boat. He basically knocks her over. I mean, it's not on purpose, but he knocks her into the water and has to go in and save her. And then she is so smitten with the fact that he saved her. Forget about knocking her in the water. She doesn't even come up. It's not even mentioned. They go into a total sex fest on the boat. The sex is graphic, I will say that. And this scene goes on for about 4 minutes. I'm not gonna go into details, but for a guy who had been bragging about his sexual prowess for months on end, he seems to be handcuffed to some pretty basic moves. So relationship consummated. Immediately after that, he wants to take her to a ball or something, and she says, oh, I have nothing to wear, despite we already had a shopping spree. So you know what that means. Cue the queer fashion experts. It's time for a makeover montage. Why? Because they just went for the first idea they had at every single turn. So another montage, and of course they end up dressing her the way a heterosexual man would, because, again. And this is not the last time they go shopping in this movie. Who is this movie for? Oh, you know, I'm just an internationally infamous crime lord getting his picture taken on the way into what appears to be an eyes wide shut style orgy lit with 99-cent tiki torches. So this is the point where the ex-girlfriend comes into play, yet another plot point that gets set up and then nothing happens with it. It's as if this was made by people who play on their phones the entire time they watch movies. They understand that you set things up like this, but then they have no idea what happens after that in literally every other movie ever made. But the ex-girlfriend does say she wants to kill Laura. That's her name, by the way. It doesn't really matter. It also doesn't matter that the ex-girlfriend wants to kill her because it never comes up again. And then we're treated to another sex scene, by far the worst one in the movie. It's the quickest, it's the lousiest. Fast Shooter McGee literally lasts 40 seconds. They show it in real time. Yes, I did rewind it to get the actual time, and yes, it is 40 seconds. At this point, he lets her return to Poland where she goes to see her best friend, who's an absolute maniac. She's been missing for months at this point. Disappeared on her birthday, on their trip to Italy, months. I guess Poland doesn't have anything closely resembling the FBI, because her friend's just like, oh my God, I thought you were kidnapped. You know, why? Like, no one was looking for her. She did call her mom at one point, but still. And then we're treated to, guess what? Another montage. She gets her hair bleached blonde with this awesome cut. She's literally starting to look like a porn star, so the line is becoming just more and more blurred. Then she bumps into Cargo Shorts, who is actually dressed like an adult for a change, because I guess he's a changed man. He wants to come back into her life. Then, another example of why this movie sucks. They have a spat, she gets on an elevator. By the way, she never seems concerned or suspicious that Massimo's men might be following her or tailing her, and they don't appear to be at all, which is crazy to me, because she's still kidnapped, by the way. But Cargo Shorts gets on the elevator, and I'm like, oh no, she's gonna get R-worded by her ex-boyfriend, and then Massimo's gonna kill him, and it's gonna be a whole, oh my goodness. Nothing happens. He follows her back to her apartment where she opens the door. I guess she knows the guy's impotent or something, because she is not afraid of this guy. Even though she's not afraid of him, Massimo has to scare him off. And then we're treated to easily the best sex scene in the movie. The lighting's cool in it. It's kind of hot. It's long. It's not too long. If you want to watch the best sex scene in the movie and only that, it's at the 1 hour and 32 minute mark. You're welcome. I would even dare to say they paired it with the best song choice from the entire movie. I mean, I personally would have picked Strokin' by Clarence Carter, but the one they picked didn't make my eardrums wilt the way everything else in this soundtrack did. And then she wakes up to him proposing to her with the tiniest diamond I've ever scene. Easily one of the wealthiest crime lords in the world, a man who has castles and who can whip up a banquet at the snap of his fingers, buys a diamond that is maybe, and I mean maybe, we're talking if it's basically flawless and colorless, but not totally flawless, because honestly, if you go totally flawless, you're literally just throwing money away. So let's assume he got the second best diamond possible, and assuming he doesn't know a guy, and let's face it, if anybody has a diamond guy, it's this guy. But let's assume he doesn't have a diamond guy, he's paying top dollar. That diamond is maybe worth $4 grand. What's next? He's gonna ask if he can move into her place and have her dad pay for the wedding. And her friend is the only person in this movie that feels like a real person. Like she's freaking out about her friend marrying this crime lord like a real person would. Oh, by the way, she's pregnant. And you're thinking, Darren, why don't you just show us the reveal? Like the moment where they told us that she was pregnant. That was it. They just sort of drop it in conversation. There's no big reveal. It's not a big moment. It's not a big twist. I mean, seriously though, like I'm joking around. This is not a thing. This is not content. Oh, this movie's the biggest waste of time. Oh. So now, at this point, with mere minutes left, I mean, you pause the movie, there's 5% of the movie is left, and we're treated to this. Another shopping montage.
You know,
yes, it's for a dress, but still, man, like the clock is ticking. They got all these loose ends to wrap up. Their relationship, they've got the pregnancy that he doesn't know about. They've got her heart condition. They've got the girlfriend that wants to kill her. They've got the boyfriend that kinda maybe isn't resolved yet. They've got Massimo's men that have all the grumblings behind him. They've got other business dealings and things. They've got all these plates are spinning right now. And we're literally watching her friend goof around with one of Massimo's guys while she tries on wedding dresses. So when that's over, I mean, there are mere moments left in this movie. They're driving, I'm thinking, if anything less than one of them dying occurs, then this isn't a movie. It's not a story. It's not anything. It has to be that or more. Again, that's the bare minimum. So they're driving and he's talking on the phone to her, and then in another car, his guy Mario, who doesn't like her, gets a call that she's gonna be killed. But he's racing, he can't get through the Massimo because he's on the phone with her. She drives into a tunnel, the phone goes dead, and Mario shows up and sort of gives Massimo sort of a half-hearted, like, kind of look, and Massimo immediately knows the woman of his dreams is dead, he's devastated. They show you the tunnel that she never came out of with a police car in front of it. The camera pans up slowly to the endless ocean, signifying the endlessness of Machismo's love for what's-her-face. His heart is now but a single one-man boat on an ocean of emotion. So, 365 Days qualifies for the worst movie on Netflix because, like Larry David holding on to Jillian Bell's muffin top, this movie is just barely hanging on to being, I mean, the slimmest definition of what a movie actually is. And it's not lost to me that this is based on a book. Yeah, book, B-O-O-K. There's a book. And not only is there a book, it's a trilogy. And not only is it a trilogy, it was Polish and apparently, according to the Amazon reviews, was poorly translated into English. So rapid fire, 10 ways this movie could have been made better. The boyfriend could have assaulted her and been murdered by Massimo. She could have worked for Massimo in some capacity at some point. I mean, she was a successful businesswoman. Her friend could have been shot by mistake because of the new hair dye. She actually makes him softer like he asked for in the beginning, but it actually leads to them both being killed because he becomes too soft in his business. Massimo could have been overthrown by his men who then take her captive. When the crazy ex comes to kill Laura, Laura could have killed her instead, making them both murderers and therefore a better couple. He could have courted her traditionally only for her to later discover that he's a crime boss. A twist ending could show all of her affection was only a ploy to escape before the 365 days was up. There is no Laura. He falls in love with the woman who shot his father from that helicopter instead. Number one, her heart condition could have led to him her to death. I mean, do people who engage in BDSM also watch movies like this recreationally? I mean, I guess people who fish watch fishing shows.
A rod that's lightweight, that's extremely sensitive.
But it just seems to me like those folks would watch porn and not this schlock, right? People my age and older will remember TV VCR combos. They never made good TVs nor good VCRs, and that's this movie. It's not a good movie, and it's not a good porn substitute. I mean, if you want to watch a good movie with sex scenes in it, here are 10 good movies with sex scenes currently available on streaming.
I be smoking.
And then if you just want to watch people having sex, I mean, just Google it. If you like this video, I consider doing more of them. Be sure to like it. It's an unusual type of video for me to do. Also, I fully expect this one to get demonetized. It's a lot of work. I'm probably not going to make any money off of it. So let's at least try to get it to get some views, especially if you want to see me review more movies like this in the future. If you did see 365 Days, let me know in the comments below, but also help me thank the Patreon supporters down there in the comments. If you're interested in becoming a Patreon supporter, there is a link in the description below. There's also a link where you can become a channel member, which gets you access to exclusive videos so that you literally never run out of good movies to watch. But I will keep making videos as long as you keep watching them. Thanks for watching this special worst of Netflix video, and you will see me on the next one.
Crime, penetration, crime, full penetration, crime, penetration, and this goes on and back and forth for 90 or so minutes until the movie just sort of ends.
I be smoking.